my successful working for the EMCEE people of the EMEA members who are on our marketing partners. Just before I get going, I'd like
The Philippine Mining Club and the Philippine Infrastructure and Construction Club are professional networking forums bringing industries together and creating opportunities for the Philippine mining and infrastructure and construction industries. Networking is about giving, not taking. It is about forming trust and helping one another toward mutual goals, regularly engaging with your contacts, and finding opportunities to strengthen relationships. Networking is a great opportunity to exchange best practice knowledge, learn about the business techniques of your peers, and stay abreast of the latest industry developments. Opportunities like partnerships, invitations to events, introductions, and giving talks and presentations bring challenges that benefit and feed your career, professional development, and personal interest. Gaining the advice of experienced peers is an important benefit of networking.
Digital engineering is about connecting the present with the future, the digital world with the physical, connecting possibility with reality. Most of all, it's about bringing value to our clients. The projects we work on are exciting and will impact the future of Sydney for years to come, so getting the best outcome calls for working in a smarter way. We aim to have a partnership with our clients. It's not about building something and walking away. It's thinking about an end-to-end solution. What needs can we foresee, and how can we put in place a reliable process now that will keep adding value in future? GHD is pioneering workflows, which we expect will become industry standards in future. Digital models are built and stored in the cloud for always-on access to teams around the globe. Workflows assign tasks to people, set deadlines, and track costs against a work breakdown structure. Multiple disciplines review a federated model at the same time, resulting in better projects that are coordinated, cost-effective, and developed with stakeholder investment in mind. The transparency this offers our clients is extremely powerful in fostering trust and communication. Taking a measure twice, cut once approach saves millions across planning and construction.
Joel,
Changes to a digital model are faster and provide a better coordinated design for our clients. Data and project priorities are thus what drive decision making. Ultimately, the inspiration comes from people.
Including the PMC and PMEA. I was muted then. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to, including our PMC and PMEA members and our marketing partners. Welcome to the 7th in our new PMC series of webinars. My name is Kevin Lewis, and I hope that you all have an enjoyable and informative time with us today. Just before I get going, I'd like to mention some of the companies and groups that make this event possible. And our supporting partners are Intertech, Hexagon Mining, Autotech, Major Drilling Corporation, Drill Corp, Imdex, Ollie Consulting, First Metro Securities, and Resources Comms from Melbourne. Our foundation partners are Weir Minerals. Weir Minerals delivers end-to-end solutions for all mining, transportation, milling, processing, and waste management activities. Site Work Ready. Site Work Ready offers international recruitment and workforce solutions to companies in the mining and processing, oil and gas, and construction industries. Our principal partners, Oztai Geophysical Consultants, advice and guidance for geophysical exploration programs being carried out in the mining and metals sector as well as the coal sector. Oztai Geophysical Consultants also provide a wide range of services to the environmental, groundwater, and engineering industries. QED, Quest Exploration Drilling, Asia's leading exploration drilling company with modern equipment with well-trained staff, has elevated QED to become the benchmark for international standard drilling operations in terrain that is generally typified by logistical constraints, geological complexity, and topographic extremes. GHD has a permanent presence in the Philippines and have had since 1998, with over 600 professional staff spread across 3 cities in the Philippines. Their main office in Makati and their 2 branches now in Cebu City and Quezon City focus on creating lasting community benefits. GHD leverages off its global network of 10,000 employees to provide engineering and environmental management services to key players in the energy and resources sector. Our industrial partners are TVI Development with their Agata Nickel project, Oceana Gold, and we thank them for their ongoing support. The Philippine Mining Club is also affiliated with a number of groups, and I'll just read them now. The Melbourne Mining Club, which is the biggest mining club on the planet. ANZCHAM, the Australian New Zealand Chamber of Commerce, PMEA, the Philippine Mining Exploration Association, COMP, which is the Chamber of Mines of the Philippines, PMCEE, the Philippine Miners Safety Environment Association, and YAMA Philippines. And of course, our media partner is nationally the biggest resources journal in the Philippines, the Philippine Resources and Construction Journal. I'd just like to say a few words about our MC. Unfortunately, our regular MC, Leo Dominguez, is not available today, but we have a very good man standing in for him, Mr. Roger Dimmell, who is my partner with the Philippine Mining Club. Roger's been visible in the past few webinars. I don't believe his bio details have been widely shared. In summary, allow me to say a few words about our MC today, Mr. Roger Dimmell. He is educated in Ottawa, Canada, a capital of Carleton University, and where he joined the Canadian government, spending 23 years working with the Canadian International Development Agency, CEDA. Now in his 33rd year in the Philippines, having spent the last 3 years as the first Secretary for Development at the Canadian Embassy, as CEDA's NGO coordinator, and following other developments, development work experiences in Indonesia and Thailand in the 1980s. Roger worked as a private consultant with several bilateral and multilateral aid agencies such as CEDA, Swedish CEDA, the UNDP, the World Bank, IOM, and with consulting firms such as AMEC and Cardno Engineering Marketing, among others. On mining, he has been involved for 5 years with Eldorado Gold, with Nesbitan Malabo project, Canamares Norte, now operated by Mount Labo and RTG. He is the current chair of the Advocacy Committee for the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, with a major focus on infrastructure, mining, agriculture, and renewable energy, and works closely with the joint foreign chambers of on advocacy work within those sectors. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll now hand you over to our MC today, Mr. Roger Dimmell. Thank you, Roger.
Thank you very much, Kevin, and welcome to all. I would like to first mention a couple of, or a few of the people that are with us today that certainly have shown their support to the Philippine Mining Club and for mining in general. The first one I would like to acknowledge is the presence of Stephen J. Robinson, who is the Australian ambassador to the Philippines. And I certainly welcome you, Ambassador Robinson, and I hope you have an informative time here today. Some of the other mining people that are here today, we have Leo Bellarmino Jr., who is with Genu Luanching Mining, and we've got Craig Bickley, CEO, Ludon Resources, Pty Limited. Sorry, I'm just looking at my screen here. Bartolome Monteforte, President, Consolidated Explosives Group. I hope he didn't bring any explosives today. Melvin Alonso, President, Rapu Rapu Minerals, Inc. Dr. Marwan, oh, this is going to be a good one. Sorry. Abdul Karim, Director, Holchimu, I apologize for massacring this word, Global Services. This appears to be from Nigeria, so I certainly welcome somebody who's visiting from Nigeria. We have Martin Buckingham, who is a director of Atlas Mining, and Cameron Bain, director of Mincor, Australia. James Bolloy, Abra Mining president, who's the president. And Annie D, who is the president of Teresa Marble Corp. So those are the few of the guests that are with us today. Now, before we get going, I would just like to offer the Philippine Mining Club's congratulations to our media partner, the Philippine Resource and Construction Journal. It's their 10th anniversary. Full partnership continue for many years to come. Issue 4 is now out, and the link is currently on your screen. Now, before we get to our first speaker, I'll just mention a few house rules. As a courtesy to speakers and to avoid unnecessary noise, all in the background, may we ask everyone to put their mics on mute and cameras off. You can turn them on at the end of the program for the photo op. We will be issuing certificates of attendance to those that wish to have them. You may request a copy from our capable executive secretary, Ms. Joanne Falcutella, who is, her contact information there is up there, and it's on a website also. For your questions addressed to our speaker today, panelists can type them in the chat box. Audience, those in the audience can use either the chat box or the Q&A, which you will see down there with the arrows. I will then read them out to our speaker after his presentation during the Q&A session. Okay, our next speaker is Mr. Sandy Gilles, who those of you who have attended either our morning luncheons or our webinars will know him, and he does a stock watch. So I would just like to introduce you to Sandy, for those that don't know him. Sandy is a financial analyst working to educate clients of the stockbroker firm, First Metro Securities. He used to teach finance in college for undergraduates of Masters of Business Administration students. Ladies and gentlemen, I now present to you our stock market speaker, Sandy Gilles.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It is my privilege to present you the stock watch for today. And I am inspired by the good example of Clean Earth Technologies. They have a clean approach to tapping the Earth's richness. And I note that they have offices in Perth and Singapore. Now, I have known for a long time that the Australian Stock Exchange is a powerhouse in terms of raising capital for companies from all over the globe. More than 270 international businesses are listed on the ASX. They dip into a $3 billion pool of capital because they have plenty of retirement funds. Now, what I didn't know so well until recently was that the Singapore Exchange is also a heavyweight in this field. On a good year, they can raise $7.5 billion of new capital for companies, and on a weak year, they can raise $2.2 billion, and that is enough to breathe life into so many companies already. They raise capital for companies in Indonesia, even the UK, Russian agricultural enterprises, USA real estate companies, and Malaysian mining companies. They not only raise money for public equity or listed shares, but also venture capital, which means funding a company when it just has its first customer, or it's just making its first sales, or its first production run. And they are also a powerhouse in financial technologies. Financial technologies, where they raised $1 billion in 2019. That's a lot of financial technology that they can sponsor. Indonesia as well, aside from Singapore, they have a big market for venture capital fundraising. So it's a healthy market for raising funds for business. Now, they have a main board on the Singapore Exchange where the biggest companies resides. Since 1999, the Singapore Exchange combines the stocks, the monetary, and the clearing and computer services. So you have 640 large stocks on the main board. You have 215 smaller companies on the Catalyst board. Then you have real estate investment trusts. A real estate investment trust is a company where you make an investment and the price doesn't really move, but you do get nice cash dividends year after year, coming from the rental income of the properties inside the investment trust. Then you have exchange traded funds. These are mutual funds that can be bought or sold just like a share of stock, simply by pressing a button and buying it from somebody on the stock exchange. You don't have to go to the office of the mutual fund to fill up a form. Then the largest companies there in the main board would be Singapore Airlines, Keppel Corporation, OCBC Bank, Capital Land, UOB, and Comfort Delgro Transportation. The Catalyst is the platform for the fast-growing enterprises. They don't want to use the term small and medium scale, but yes, they are fast-growing young companies. And aside from all that, they have bonds and fixed income with a lot of emphasis on what is green, social, and sustainable. And aside from all that, they still have an innovation called certificates for daily leverage, meaning if you want to buy a stock and it goes up 1%, well, your money goes up 1% ordinarily. But if you buy a certificate for 7% leverage, it means that if you do invest in a stock and it goes up 1%, your profit goes up 7% after you buy that certificate of leverage worth 7%. It's a great invention. Then they have derivatives, which allows you to remove price risk to protect your costs and to protect your sales. And it comes in the form of futures contracts, option contracts on many types of commodities. One unusual commodity is high quality ore powder, Fe fines. And for that, they have a commodity futures contract launched in 2018. They also have retail bonds for ordinary people. I think in the Philippines, the equivalent would be a 5,000 peso retail treasury bond. Going back to Singapore, you have bonds for green, social, and sustainable companies. Now, aside from all that, they also have an index or indices which measure how good companies are in terms of environmental, social, and governance matters. For example, the leaders, like the top companies, they have a measure of how good they are in terms of not just profitable, but also environmental and good to society and transparent and good governance. And this would be the stocks in the broad sustainability index. The leaders are the top few, and these are the majority in the main board, the rest of them. Now, companies then get a score. Aside from the credit rating of AAA, BBB, they also have a Sustainalytics rating. And you're hoping for a low score, which means less problems, to the extent that a certain pollutant problem can be managed. So this allows companies, whether petrochemicals or car makers or software companies, to be judged according to how they manage the environmental, social, and governance risks that they face. If they're doing a good job, they get a good score. This allows us, therefore, to compare companies across industries. And some of the CO2 emissions are unavoidable if you are operating an airline. So there is an element which is unmanageable risk. But then the companies are judged according to how they manage the so-called manageable risk. And they measure to the extent that something is done about it. And then they check if there's a gap, if there's something that they're not really working hard enough. So you're judged on problems that are still within your power to fix. As a consequence, you then get some medium, high, or low risk score. And a good score would indicate low ESG risk. As you can see, it's not just sales or profits that matter, but it's more holistic. Right, thank you for your kind attention. For additional advice on stocks, you can visit my Facebook group on Basics on Stocks and Investing. If you want to know how to start with investing or with stocks or with mutual funds, dial 88590600 or email customer service at firstmetrosec.com.ph and ask them to call you back on your cell phone. Thank you and good day.
Thank you very much, Sandy. Very good. I believe that we're going to be hearing more about the whole ESG aspects during our next speaker's presentation. So without further ado, I am going to introduce our next speaker, who is, of course, Mr. Kevin Fell. He's currently based in Singapore and has over 20 years of leadership experience across a variety of technology-related organizations. He has operated in C-level roles within ASX-listed companies, such as the former ASX-listed mining, oil, and gas solutions provider, ISS Group. He has also been involved in several private investment and corporate advisory firms, as well as in key technology consulting roles for PwC in Asia Pacific. His work is centered on full business and product life cycle development and conceptualization and commercialization through to executive sales and global operational management for both startup and corporate enterprises. Ladies and gentlemen, to speak on the topic, clean mining, non-toxic alternatives to cyanide and mercury in gold, I give you Mr. Kevin Fell, co-founder and group CEO of Clean Earth Technologies. Over to you, Kevin.
Thanks very much, Roger. Welcome, everybody. A special thank you goes out to the team at the Philippine Mining Club to, after arranging all of this. I think the timing of this is very good, considering the last talk, which was around sustainable practices. So I think we follow on from that quite well. And a special welcome to the Australian ambassador, which essentially today is a showcase of Australian technologies and innovation, which I'll go through later, but I hope you find it interesting. Before I get specifically into the clean mining solution, I just wanted to give you a brief overview of the Clean Earth Technology Roadmap. The clean mining commercialization, as you can see to the left of that screen, is around the removal of mercury and cyanide from the gold mining process. But over the next year to 2 years, we have a portfolio of technologies that are coming through. And I wanted to mention a couple of those because they have a lot of synergies with the solutions that we're looking at within the Philippines, specifically at the moment. Obviously, moving on from the clean mining solution, looking at e-waste, that's primarily around precious metals recovery using exactly the same non-toxic process that we use with the clean mining process. But if you move out into our medium-term solutions around the mercury elimination, that's particularly interesting for the Philippines and our friends in Indonesia and the region, where mercury has been used historically. It's still being used, but it's being used historically. And I know for a fact that there's a lot of historical mercury-laden toxic dumps being pushed into waterways and river systems, etc. So I will touch on that later. So it's not a matter of just using our solution to stop using mercury, but there is a remediation factor in that as well, which I want to touch on. So moving into clean mining, a slight play on abbreviations here with the ESG. We believe that our solutions are ethical and responsible, safer and sustainable, and for the greater good. And that's the mission statement that we've set ourselves when we're evaluating technologies from various research groups in order to commercialize them and take them to market. A lot of this, the guiding principles that we look to follow are around the Sustainable Development Goals, around the United Nations, and in this case, the Minamata Federation. So CSIRO, which is one of our major R&D partners, obviously world-renowned, initially developed our reagent solution for gold mining. It's They've spent tens of millions of dollars over a long period of time, and now we're collaborating with them. They're actually our R&D team in this, and I'll go through more of the role that they play with us as we move through the presentation. So let's touch on toxicity, why cyanide is a problem. Obviously, there are different opinions on this, but I don't think anybody doesn't know what cyanide is, especially in the mining industry. There's a long history of accidents. There's a massive environmental and health risk associated with using it. There are safe practices for companies to transport it and the like, but there is a significant environmental risk associated with the water, and we've all seen the accidents around tailings dams and the like, and cyanide does not play, I believe, a role in the environment moving forward, and we need to find more sustainable practices. We call using cyanide and mercury producing dirty gold, and that seems to be quite controversial to some people, but at Clean Earth and Clean Mining, we're looking to actually standardize on producing clean gold all the way through to the supply chain and into jewelry manufacturing. But what is dirty gold? Quite simplistically, in the diagram you'll see in front of us, we collect the ore, we dissolve the gold using toxic cyanide, it's all recovered, it's then pushed into a tailings dam, and the extracted gold is further refined for smelting. What that doesn't show you is the amount of cyanide that then stays within the waste rock sitting in those tailings dams. We know it breaks down over time, but we think it would be a far better solution not to use it in the first place. Our process, as I said, developed initially by CSIRO. Clean Earth Technologies now owns the patents out of this. We still collaborate with them on a daily basis. And what we're doing now is working collaboratively around the various types of ore that we're finding around the globe right now. And we see ourselves as a solution provider, not just a chemical provider. We work with each customer on their ore type and look to how we eliminate the hazardous tailings and use what we believe is the only non-toxic recovery agent that's out in the marketplace that's available to replace both cyanide and mercury. So the people always ask, how do we go about this? Well, obviously we're a new company. We've been around for about 12 months now. And so we have to work really tightly with our customers and to prove and to validate that our solution actually works for their ore type. So we have a phase one sampling process where we do some initial testing, and just to show that we can leach and we can recover the gold from that particular ore. Obviously there are thousands of different types of ore, so this allows us to use various formulas, various residency types, various grind sizes, and we then look to optimize that and work on the most optimum leach kinetics that come out of that. So if you compare the dirty gold to the clean gold process, you'll see that there's a lot of similarities in the end-to-end process, except instead of dissolving the gold using cyanide, in this case, we dissolve it using the clean mining reagent. It does exactly the same dissolving mechanism, and we extract that using a resin, and then the leftover reagent and the water then goes through a dewatering process and then recycled back into the circular end-to-end solution, which of course means it's more cost effective, less reagent. But when you're starting to get into other countries as well, you're limiting the amount of water that's used. Obviously that's not a factor everywhere, but we're dealing with a lot of people in Africa and other areas where water is scarce. So the whole dewatering solution is critical to them. So the one thing I want to stress with this slide is Clean Mining are not an engineering company. We're not an engineering manufacturer. We don't look to build plant. what we specialize in is process design around our reagent, and we work collaboratively with both the client and their engineering company of choice. So after the testing, and we do a phase 2 testing and get the optimization, we develop that process. Then we work with that engineering company for whatever engineering processes that they need to do to encompass our process into their engineering plan. There's an ongoing relationship between ourselves because obviously as more exploration is done, different ore types come up. And so we're constantly looking at optimization efforts through the life cycle of that mine, but it's very collaborative with the engineering company and the client. As you'll see from here, we're very, very similar to a CIL plant. The dewatering method that I mentioned earlier is developed on a client-by-client basis, depending on the needs. The gold, as it states up here, after it comes through the slurry and the tanks, we then look to take the dissolved gold through a resin, taking it through to offline into an elution process. The difference with CIL plants is that we actually do this at atmospheric temperature and pressure, which is obviously another benefit in our process, unlike the need for boilers within a traditional CIL plant. We also don't use a lot of the other chemicals that a CIL plant needs, just lime or carbon, and there's quite a number of others. So our reagent and our resin process is quite strict on that. So if you then move into the benefits, a lot of people say to us, well, how does it compare with cyanide? So taking away the price factors of a unit cost of a kilogram of cyanide versus a kilo of our reagent, we think that there's a bigger proposition that's outside of that. In most of the tests that we have in a comparison with cyanide, we're either the equivalent. In some cases, we're a little bit better in the case of carbonaceous ores. And in some instances, we're a little bit less, and we have varying kinetics. And I'll go through some results on that in a minute. But there are a lot of countries, a growing number of countries actually, that are banning the use of cyanide. And where they're not banning them, there are a number of other countries that have an aversion to using it, or they're recommending to other companies to find alternatives wherever possible. We're getting a lot of traction at the moment in the Balkans, where a number of those countries there have actually banned cyanide. Similarly in South America and certain states in North America. So we think that we're a good value proposition for those countries, but we're also getting a lot of traction in countries where it isn't banned and they are looking for alternatives. One of the biggest propositions that we think that we have is we remove the need for tailings dams by using dry tailings. I am aware that some cyanide processors are now starting to look at dewatering. However, fundamentally, at the end of it, there's still cyanide left in those tailings, whether they're dry or whether they're in a tailings dam. But the removal of the costs associated with the tailings dam, together with compliance costs and occupational health and safety costs, rehabilitation costs, etc., we think that the proposition of our solution works out in the long run to be far cheaper compared to cyanide when you don't take these additional costs into consideration. So people say, where is it used? Can you show me where it's validated? Well, the original version of our technology was developed by CSIRO for Barrick Gold Strike Mine in Nevada. That was done for a particular type of ore, not ubiquitous, just very, very specific. That has successfully been operating at over 13,000 tons of ore per day. And what we've done is worked with CSIRO to take that technology and use it over a much broader spectrum of ores. And that's what we're working with them on now. But if you look at our solution, it's practical down at the artisanal level, which we'll touch on later, but all the way through to the scale of a gold strike mine in Nevada, which we think is one of the larger operations. What I've got here is some of the CSIRO lab tests. This solution is proven outside of the lab, but I thought it was really good for everybody to see that an example across some of the various ore types. And what we've got here is various grind sizes and roughly what the head grades were. A direct comparison of cyanide versus our recovery agent, and how much of our reagent is recovered. But you'll see in most cases there, we're the equivalent both in leach kinetics and the amount of gold recovered. As I said, some of them we're ahead, some of them we're behind, but in most cases, we're pretty much neck and neck. One of the things that we have found as we're evolving our process more and more is that the leach kinetics in our optimization is improving. And in a lot of cases, we're actually finding that we're getting good leach kinetics at 4 and 5 hours, which improves the level of plant that you need, also the number of cycles that you can run within a given time period. So this is constantly being improved, but as you can see by these results, we believe we're very competitive. What I've got here is I've got a couple of graphs. Everybody seems to like graphs rather than data, so we've put a number of graphs here. So this is a refractory ore type using a 75 grind. And as you can see, at around about 4 hours, we're pretty much neck and neck with cyanide. If you look at the percentage differences in that and the associated costs with that, we are pretty much neck and neck at 4 hours. We do drop off as we oxidize a little bit more towards 24 hours. But if you look at this graph, you would look at your optimization being at around about 4 hours. You wouldn't take it any further for the extra gain that you get for that extra 20 hours of leach time. Similarly, oxide ore, you'll see that we're neck and neck at roughly 4 hours, and then we go a little bit, we improve slightly over the 24-hour period. But again, you would question whether you would get the cost benefit of leaching for an additional 20 hours. An oxide ore, I think this one speaks for itself, pretty much neck and neck. Again, you would be looking at the leach time more around 4 hours and doing numerous cycles on that. And then a banded iron formation as well. We're a little bit under cyanide at 2 hours, but by the time you get into 6 hours, we're pretty much neck and neck. So again, when you start getting into the testing and the optimization, which we work through with the engineering company, this is where we find the most cost-effective and optimum solution for the client. I touched briefly earlier on artisanal mining, and what I've gone through so far is very much around the small, medium, and larger scale operations. But we have a passion for artisanal mining, which is obviously a major influence in the Philippines and Indonesia. And so what we've set out to do is come up with a solution using our technology and try and align ourselves with the Minamata Convention and look to the problems that mercury causes in the environment, from health, communities with contaminated water, and the child development with that toxicity in the water. What I have here, I actually have a video, but because we weren't sure of what the bandwidth was going to be like for all the participants, we're refraining from actually trying to play it over Zoom. So what we've got here, we've given you a YouTube link. Please take the time to watch it. It just shows how simple our process is, whether it's two men in the field, or whether or not you're scaling up, whether or not you're having, shall we say, regional hubs where artisanal miners can bring the ore in for processing, or again, whether or not you move into larger scale operations. So we're really pushing this mercury-free process. We've started early discussions around collaboration with the Artisanal Gold Council, with Kevin Telmer and his team. We're excited about that. We have a couple of countries where we're going to start that process. We've tested it in the field, but what we really want to do is collaborate with partners around these various countries where we can refine the usage of our process in the field rather than us trying to dictate what very experienced artisanal miners are using. But please take the time to watch the video. It is very, very simple. One of the things I mentioned earlier on, which I think fits nicely into the solutions coming out of Clean Earth Technologies, is our polymer technology. This polymer is produced out of waste sulfur out of the mining, oil and gas industry and canola oil, and we have a special process that creates this polymer. It's got multiple uses, but one of the major uses that we're looking at is the remediation of mercury. I mentioned earlier on that we've spoken to a number of parties in the Philippines, and there's historical tailings that are in lakes and rivers and the like, and you have young kids on hookers getting down there, sort of digging up a lot of these tailings and bringing them to the surface, but they're still contaminated with mercury. What we're wanting to do with our process is not only help recover the gold out of that process, but interact using our polymer technology to then remediate the water and the soil as a result of that. So far, we're getting great results in water, and we're currently working more on a slurry out of the soil. I must add that this technology was developed from the Flinders University in South Australia. The Chalker lab that's there is our R&D team around this polymer and the number of uses that are coming out of it. And recently that technology won the Australian Prime Minister's Award for Science last month. So I think congratulations go out to them. But we see a lot of benefits in this mercury remediation at the back end of Philippine and Indonesian tailings processing. So what is our target market? If you look at the larger scale, what I've got here is an extract from Standard & Poor's Global Analytics. What it shows here is not in non-production sites, sort of coming through from greenfields, exploration, etc. There are 14,708 mines that are trying to push through to production. Of those, 6,340 of those are coming through processes in countries where there is a cyanide aversion. So from our perspective, we think we've got a tremendous market to aim for. But of course, we're always going to aim for the 14,000 there as well, because we think that we have a better solution. Moving more into the Philippine market, as you can see, active, according to Standard & Poor's, there's about 43 mines in that greenfield stage, and then a number that are inactive. What we would like to do is explore those that are inactive and understand why they're inactive and whether or not our non-toxic solution would help any environmental constraints that they may have around those mines. What you'll see here is the market penetration that we've had in 12 months. I can honestly say that COVID has been a global disaster, but it hasn't impacted us greatly at all. The feedback that we've had on our solution from testing through to marketing has been incredible. And as you'll see here, you'll see in 12 months the penetration that we've had in the countries that have shown interest, and we've got active leads in those countries. We've also tried to differentiate between those that are in cyanide banned or aversion countries versus those that don't mind, that are still testing our solution within their processes. Oops, sorry, let me go back. I jumped a sec. So the market process, we've had in 12 months over 1,000 inquiries. We've got 450 active leads at various levels, and we've got approximately 60 mines going through either testing or testing logistics. We have a number that are actually already in sort of process review and process design. So we're really pleased with the progress that we've made in such a short time. Mining Magazine awarded us Processor of the Year for 2019, and we're looking to build on that into next year as a number of our clients start to go live. As I mentioned earlier, one of our strong points is around the carbonaceous ore. In some cases, we've seen up to 48% improvement on cyanide in that area, and we're getting tremendous traction in a number of countries, including the Philippines, with opportunities in Mobile and Mindanao. So the publicity that we've had from this across ABC and CNBC Africa has been great, and now the support that we're getting out of the Artisanal Gold Council across initially across the Philippines and Mongolia is really encouraging. We've also got some in-field testing in Colombia, who also have a mercury problem, and we're looking to how we use the non-toxic gold solution to remove the gold from historical tailings whilst they use this mercury remediation process that I mentioned earlier. So that is a really high overview. I wanted to try and make this as casual as possible so we can have a good Q&A session for anybody that's interested. I've also taken the opportunity to have my technical team behind me. I'm not really good at talking about rocks and chemicals, so they can support me on this. But I'd really like to open up the floor to any questions, and my team can jump in if and where appropriate.
Okay. Job, can I get a... Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much, Kevin. I just had to change my view there. Okay, so now we are ready to receive some question chats and Q&As, and we also have some already. I have a question. I was just doing a search of polymer, other polymer processes, and I understand there's one out of China that has been used, and apparently one of the criticism of it compared to cyanide is that it takes longer. It does process or extract gold. It takes up to 48 hours to extract it. So how is yours different? I mean, I noticed on your timelines that your process actually beats, depending on the ore type, your process actually beats cyanide over a 24-hour period or a 4-hour period.
It's very ore specific. There's somewhere the leach kinetics, the recovery is 4 hours, as I showed earlier, and some where it does take 24 hours on average. We believe from a cost benefit perspective, we're getting good kinetics at 4 and 5 hours. We're aware of some of the technologies coming out of China. I wasn't aware of their leach timings, but one of the concerns that we've had in further analyzing some of those solutions, I'm not saying it's the one that you're mentioning, is that they managed to, shall we say, go around the SDS toxicity reporting, but when you actually start to look at the chemical analysis during the process, you'll find that it actually creates cyanide on the way through. So that's one area of concern for us at the moment. So when we've done our competitor analysis, in most cases, we've been able to do both the comparison analysis as well. And that's probably one of the areas of concern that we have. A lot of them are promoted as non-toxic, but we're yet to see one. We came across a new one today, which essentially uses very unstable hot acids, but is being promoted as a non-toxic solution. So yeah, that we believe at this point in time, we're the only genuine non-toxic solution in the market.
Yeah, there was a, you mentioned cyanide. I've had some background involvement with hydrobiology. I don't know whether you've heard of hydrobiology, and their comment was that very fact. You know, and they said to date they seem to have run medium-scale pilot plants, which you say that you haven't, but the technology is very similar to, no, this is the Chinese one, very similar to the Jinshan process that is being widely promoted by the Chinese.
Exactly.
And
right.
that we have a client in Suriname that is investigating. Interestingly, the process seems to rely on the partial decomposition of thiosulfate to release, you guessed it, cyanide. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, I think you've summarized that quite well, actually. As I said, that particular process, from the analysis that we've had done independently, in the chemical reaction during that process, it actually creates cyanide. And we know that that particular process is marketed under 6 or 7 different brands through Africa and a number of different countries, but it all seems to be the same product. And like I said, from the analysis that we've had, it confirms exactly what you say.
Oh, okay. Now there is actually there is another question from Dean Richardson from Gold Gear International. Can you answer how the thiosulfate provides a workable solution to the use of mercury in ASM, and how?
Sorry, Roger, I lost you slightly there.
Okay, the question is from Dean Richardson from Gold Gear. Can you answer how the thiosulfate provides a workable solution to the use of mercury in ASM, and how?
Okay, so one thing I will say is please watch the video. I'm not going to deflect to the video, I'll answer the question, but please watch the video. You'll see how simple it is. So if you look at the ASM miners and whether they crush, they grind, or they get it down into certain a grind size, we can actually leach that in the thiosulfate and then use the recovery agent on the back of that. Whether you're using agitated drums or whether or not you're using vats, whether it's a 2-man process, it's more around agitation with the thiosulfate inside those drums with the ore. If you look at the video, as I said, it takes you end to end through that, and the field test that we've shown there, and one which we'll be working with the Artisanal Gold Council, it's a two-man job.
Okay, very good. Now there is another. Here's a question about cost. What is the cost of the solution?
Again, we're pretty much per kilo of cyanide versus our reagent, we're within 5 to 10% of each other. You know, I've seen various prices, but when you start looking into medium and larger scale plants, it isn't the cost of the actual reagent itself. The plant infrastructure is virtually 90% the same as what ours is. So therefore you wouldn't say there's a major difference. But when you look at a lot of the additional on costs around tailings dams, around remediation, around occupational health and safety, around insurance and liabilities, all of those things, when you start taking that into the full cost picture, we actually think that the solution is more cost effective.
Yeah. Not to mention the cost of raising money.
Exactly.
But, a good, as Sandy said, a good ESG score is going to lower your cost of financing.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, let's see now. What other question? I think there was another question related to small, to artisanal. This is from Machipisa. Sorry, I completely got that wrong. Machipis Crispin. For artisanal mining, what is the processing cycle time and what is the smallest quantity that can be extracted? Not sure what that means.
Look, I've got a general idea, and how we've looked at it up until now is there are some artisanal miners that use a rudimentary gravity process. Where we tend to come into our own is anything where the gold is still within the ore, and therefore use our process for an additional recovery around leach.
Yeah.
Given the fact that our reagent is roughly around about 2 kilograms per ton of ore, that gives you a fair guidance and as into what the leach kinetics would be on that, and therefore you wouldn't need an awful lot. But in the field, we've been using 44-gallon drums, so you can use your ore in that and make sure that you rotate those drums or agitate those drums and then follow the recovery process out of the pregnant solution at the back of that. So I would say that whatever is cost effective for the miner, I wouldn't have thought that some high grade tailings in a 44-gallon drum would take up a major amount. So you can certainly work at the lower end of the scale with that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Now let me see some other.
Yeah, it's a real shame we couldn't show the video because I think, it would have been really good for everybody. So please take the time.
Just on that point, Joe, you have the video, right?
Yes.
Joe, can you play it?
Okay, let me pull that out.
Okay, we're just going to line up the video and play it in a minute. Okay, just while we're waiting, how effective is thiosulfate on sulfide ores? This is from Dean Richardson again.
Yeah, look, it depends on the ore itself. I've got Christina on the line at the moment, who is our in-house metallurgist, who has been across all the various ore types, and she can probably go down into a little bit more specific of the subvariants of that and give you an indication.
Yep. So all of the test work that we've done recently, we're actually getting really good results on some highly sulfide ore bodies, which is good. We do a little bit worse in sort of an arsenopyrite material. Cyanide is a little bit better about breaking that arsenic bond apart than our solution is. But a lot of the sort of the sulfide ores that we've been dealing with at the moment, we've actually had some really positive results. But again, it's very ore specific. So we do like to test because every ore is different. So there might be some additional refractory elements in there, such as antimony, that will retard the leaching anyway. So there's always effects for both our reagent and cyanide, which is why we like to always test. However, we are good in the refractory, the carbonaceous ore. So I think this is some of the questions that's come up. The gold complex that's created by dissolving gold in our reagent, that doesn't attach to carbon. And that's why we utilize resin, so that it means that in a carbonaceous ore, you don't get any of those preg robbing effects. So that's always a positive for us.
Okay.
Video is ready.
Like a good answer. Okay. Okay. Why don't we roll a video? It's what? It's about five minutes or a couple of minutes? It's about
a couple of minutes.
3 or 4 minutes, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to roll the video now. go.
Yeah, so as you'll see from that, we're not professing that we've got it totally streamlined and that we totally understand what guys would be doing in the field. That's why we want collaboration partners. But as you can see from it, it's a fairly straightforward process and probably plenty of areas for improvement on that as well. And that's why we're so excited to be working with the Artisanal Gold Council around refining that with a lot of their members.
Yeah. Are you doing any work with EMCEE?
Not at this point in time, no.
Because I noticed that EMCEE has just made a link up with the artisanal group too.
Okay, that's something I think we've touched base with them, but the discussions haven't really gone far at the moment.
Yeah, well, they're getting some traction, some of the mining companies, and they just signed a deal with BMW. That's that they're now BMW is requiring all of their supply chain to comply with the EMCEE standards. So that would seem to be a pretty big step in that respect. So, okay, just a few other. That probably generated even more questions. And now here's a question as to whether somebody would like to take a sample of your reagent for testing in our laboratory. I would say that's probably not going to happen. But, this is from Birol, somebody Birol. Okay, now here's a question again from Dean about crushing sizes. How much does the ore have to be processed, i.e. crushed to what micron?
Oh, look, it depends. Again, it's all specific. And when we do the optimization on the larger scale mines, well, not larger scale, but the non-artisanal sector, we look at the optimum grind size in accordance with that particular ore. We've seen it up into 150. We've tested down to sort of 30 to 40, and we look for the optimum that's in that. Obviously, when you're in the artisanal area, it's not quite as uniform in its crushing, unless they're a little bit more of a larger operation and they do have crushing facilities. But like I said, we don't profess to be the engineering plant provider. We work with each of the customers around what is optimum for them. And like I said, some of them have gravity, some of them have crushing. And what we do is we increase the level of recovery at the back end by using our leaching process.
I just got I can't find it. Just a minute, up here. From engineer Clemente from the University of Philippines. She had a question. I'm just trying to find it. It's under chat, is it? No, I can't seem to find it.
It's on the chat.
Is it? It's under chat, is it? Engineer Clemente, can you join us in audio? Can she join it on audio?
Let me try that.
Yeah.
For anybody that has any questions, there's info at Clean Mining. We'd be very happy to take any questions outside of here as well. If they don't get their questions across today, and we'll respond accordingly.
Yeah, well, we can certainly give you a copy of all of the questions.
Hello.
Hello, is this Engineer Clemente?
This is Professor Clemente
Yes,
from the
yes,
University of the Philippines.
yes.
I
Thank you
was
very
asked-
much for talking.
Uh,
I know that you have done a lot of work with the small scale miners.
Yes, I was going to
And
ask, how
yeah,
does the
and
cost look? Your product, how does it look? Is it going to be affordable for small scale miners?
Okay, so here's
This is
a
one of the
question
things that
for
we're
you.
looking to work at with the Artisanal Gold Council around making sure that the process is refined, and that'll also allow us to look at optimum levels of ore and the like, so that the price positioning of that is competitive. But I can assure you that the cost associated with that our thiosulfate. Let me just say, it isn't just thiosulfate. We have lots of secret herbs and spices that go into that as well. And we, like I said, we're working with the Artisanal Gold Council, some governments and NGOs around that as well. And we'll be looking to make sure that the process and pricing is competitive.
Okay, thank you very much.
Now the cost there is it's not more than the cost. I mean, obviously, well, first of all, quite frankly, Mercury shouldn't be available in the Philippines because it's banned.
Correct.
So obviously it's here because of black market, and a lot of it is controlled by, so we say, people who shouldn't be providing it. So in fact, when you start looking at trying to do away with it, you may get some pushback from those people that are actually not actually mining, but managing the small scale mining operations.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you there, Roger, and that's why we're looking at collaboration partners in the field around that that are educated within that field, and that's why one of them is the Artisanal Gold Council, who are active out there as well. And as I said, we're also dealing with a number of governments and NGOs, a number of groups also in Indonesia as well that see that problem. But this is we're pushing this. It's our social conscience, and we do genuinely want to make a difference. And I think it's an area where we can contribute, but we will need to get some support from these groups because we are expecting pushback from some of the sectors of the market that supply this black market mercury.
Yeah, well, certainly, I mean, I think, I mean, I'm no expert, but having been here in Philippines for 33 years, I know that whatever solution is going to have to be highly tailored from country to country because of not only the the kind of ores that are here, but the underlying problems. For example, here we have an insurgency that's been going on for since the late 60s, which has a major impact on the incentive to run small scale mining.
Yeah.
So there are a number of factors involved.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, okay. And let's see now if there are other questions here. Why are workers not given PPEs? Oh no, there's a question. I think he means in the video, why aren't they using PPEs?
We'll have to take that question on notice, I would say.
So I can answer that one. What it is that because our solution is non-toxic and non-harmful, you can actually put your arm into the solution and it doesn't react with anything. So we haven't had to use the proper PPE like you would in a cyanide plant, which is if you get on your skin, can absorb through your skin. We don't have any of those toxic problems.
Okay, good answer. Okay, now let's see if I can see any more. There was one from let me look in chat. Oh, that was chat. Oh, this is from who is this from? Jeff Boswell. Oh, he's Sorry, I think he's chatting me in Viber. Oh wait, no, I think where is it here? Anyway, yeah, this is from Jeff Boswell, who's been involved in mining here for years. I did some work on arrival of gold in Porgera gold system when I was there. We found out that gold was emplaced as a thiosulfate complex, 250 to 330 degrees C. Very efficient system that has been discovered to be a monster alkali gold system. Does your solution work at 25 to 30 degrees?
Again, I can probably answer that one.
Did you hear that?
The thiosulfate complex, we run our reagent sort of less than 60 degrees. Above 60 degrees, we actually start to find out that the reagent will decompose a little. So less than 60 degrees, we don't do it at any high temperatures.
Okay, so sorry, I misread the last. So it should read, does your solution work at 250 to 300 degrees?
No, definitely
correct?
less than 60 degrees.
Okay, all right. So Jeff, there's your answer. Okay, let's see. Any other questions here? Yeah, here's a question from June Ingeniero. Can activated carbon be used to recover gold instead of resins?
Yep, so that one is a definite no. So the complex that's made when leaching gold, it doesn't absorb onto carbon, and that's why we use a resin, and it's a resin that's highly selective for gold recovery. So we don't use carbon in our system anywhere, and you can't use it.
Okay. So the trees are saved.
Yeah.
So what they should do is to turn it into biochar, and then you're actually taking away the carbon from the atmosphere. Okay. Well, here's another solution compatible with activated carbon, and your answer is no, it's not. June again. Will it be effective? I'll effectively recover refractory. Will some contaminants interfere with the clean technology?
So there will always be some contaminants that will interfere with either our reagent or with cyanide. It really just depends on testing the ore. So we've had some refractory ore types that have come through, and we've actually had really good recoveries on gold for them. So it really is dependent on the ore.
Okay, here's one from Kevin Bullen. On cost, does the total operating cost in general prove to be beneficial over traditional cyanide extraction with INCO type cyanide destruction in development? I presume that's INCO, the old INCO mine. How does the CAPEX cost stack up against CIL and pressure Zadra, given the reduction around reagent mixing costs for SMBS and copper sulfate? There's a long one.
Do you want to take that one, Christina? Did you get the context?
I got most of the context. It's basically just wanting to compare the cost of sort of an R plant to a CIL plant. The Zadra is just a process of removing gold from carbon. So you can use a split Anglo-American system or a pressure Zadra system. It's the same. It's removing the gold from the carbon. So over the life of the mine, as we've been saying, you know, we have less regulations. There's less reagents that we're adding in. So there's significantly less costs over the life cycle of the mine. And we're very comparable in the costs comparing it to cyanide.
Okay, well, there's lots of questions about costs here. And maybe you could just, you know, I mean, I think you have covered costs here. I mean, it's obviously based on the type of ore. Two, I guess, on the size of the operation, although not so much. Here's one again from Dean. Dean has a lot of questions. You should contact him directly. It is clear that the thiosulfate can work as an alternative to cyanidation as long as the system can be adapted. It is obvious that this process for host rock, and that is encouraging, but it has no real value in alluvial, as that is more about simple gravity recovery.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't
nothing
think
embedded
if
in
you
the
have
rock,
significant
there's no reason to leach, but
yeah. I mean, if you have simple gravity recovery that you're happy with, then you don't have to treat it anymore.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Again, costs. Are you going to be coming up with any cost parameters?
Yeah. Let me just re-emphasize on the costs, Roger. When you do a direct comparison of a kilo of cyanide and a kilo of our reagent, there is very, very little difference. But if you look at it beyond that, in a true cost factor of an end-to-end operation of the life cycle of a mine, where we believe that we're beneficial is plant costs is pretty much the same. Whatever you need for a CIL plant, for the tonnage that you want to process, you will still need roughly the same. Where we think that we've got a better value proposition is exactly those points that you made earlier on. It's around, we don't need to have tailings dams. There's occupational health and safety, regulatory, time to market with environmental approvals, transportation costs, hazardous goods, all of those type of things adds cost to an operation. You don't need to address them with ours. So it isn't a direct comparison of a kilo of thiosulfate versus a kilo of cyanide. There's a much bigger cost matrix that comes in, and we believe that we come out on top of that.
Yeah, well, you know, especially if you add the increasing trend and you know, the push to either do dewatering of your tailings pond or adding solidifying agents to it. You know, that's, you know, and the ICMM is just finalizing its tailing management guidelines, which as I understand will be heavily involved in both of those processes. So that's going to add to the costs of using the cyanide process. Yeah.
Once we go to our dry tailings, you can repatriate those tailings quite comfortably without the worries about contaminants or other issues. So all of those maintenance costs around tailings dams as well disappear. So not just the cost of setting up, but the ongoing maintenance of them as well. It's a significant cost when you start getting into medium and larger scale operation.
Yeah, well, you could use the leftover ore or the tailings for doing terracing, for example. You know, if it's a mountainous area.
Exactly. Yeah, and we've seen the problems that come out of that in those areas, and in fact, we've been dealing with a number where it's just physically impossible for them to do.
Okay, well, our last question, I think everybody is questioned out. The last question was 3:41, and it is now 5:04. So just let me check the chat to see if there's any more. No, that seems to be it. Well, I guess we're coming to the end of our Q&A. unless anyone has some questions that haven't been asked before, I guess. Now, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but the Q&A is going to be available on our website and
Yes.
our Facebook page.
Yes.
So, it'll be well worth your while to have a look at that and see where the questions are. And I'm sure you've got these, you must have had these questions 1,000 times before. So you probably know where all your...
Absolutely. Look, we know we're a new solution and we don't mind answering those questions. As I said, if they're there, or if anybody wants to contact us directly on Enfort Clean Mining or Enfort Clean Earth Technologies, we're happy to address them.
Okay. All right. Well, I better just hang on. I got get my script again. Just a minute. Okay. Well, I would thank certainly our presenters for giving us such an interesting program to discuss. Now, I am correct to say that you will be back in the new year to follow up on this presentation. If you can hear me, I see my internet is unstable.
Yeah, I believe we've got something scheduled for February, so I'm quite happy to do that.
Okay, all right, and I understand you may have an IPO coming up.
That's the intent. Yes, we're just working through that at the moment, and we hope to have some news in the short term on that.
Okay.
I should be able to shed
Okay,
some light.
very good. Well, with that.
Sorry?
I'm sorry?
Sorry.
Sorry, I talked over
we should
you.
have some news on the IPO around February.
Okay, very good. Well, we will look forward to that. So I think we'll wrap this up. Thanks all of the attendees. I don't know what our maximum was. It's from the chats. I think we had a lot of interest. So I will now close the Q&A and close the program. But I would hope that most people stick around. We try to have a bit of a photo op at the end so that everyone can turn on and so we can have a group picture. So just a few announcements before we actually close. Our next webinar is coming up early next year and will be the second in our Philippine Infrastructure and Construction Club, PICC series, and tentatively scheduled for mid-January. That one may be about water, so which I think is of interest to everyone here, especially our drought that we just came through. Now, I just wanted to reiterate, we'll be issuing certificate of attendance to attendees. And again, you can request this from Joan Falcutella, and her address is up there. And I encourage you all to watch out for our PMC and PICC websites in the new year for upcoming presentations. Okay, thanks everyone for coming here today. And now, if you want, you can all turn on your cameras and your mics, and we'll have a bit of a. I wish we had some beer. Kevin, traditionally we have luncheons, and they're on Friday, and in good mining tradition, we usually have beers available. So unfortunately, I wish we could all toast and have a beer. I've got some beer downstairs, but it doesn't help you out there. Okay. So there's Joey.
Hi, Roger.
Joey Eisen. If you see Joey up there, he's president of the Philippine Mining and Exploration Association, which is an affiliate of ours, and they have when it's not COVID, they have monthly meetings. So you might want to consider a presentation at the PMEA, as long as you host the bar there. Okay. Anyway, thank you very much all. Francisco, thanks for joining us. So other than that, what happened to Kevin? Kevin left? Everyone left. Job's still on there.
Must have
Okay,
taken his beer
well, I
early,
think we'll wrap
Roger.
up.
Must
Thank
have
you
had
very
his
much
beer
for
early.
everyone. Sorry?
Kevin had his beer early, so he left early.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, he's 2 hours
He's-
ahead.
Yeah, he's 3 hours ahead, so.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Kevin.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you, Christina, for
Thanks,
all
Kevin.
those technical questions.
Yeah.
No worries.
Thank you.
And I hope to see you all again, and we will in the new year. Hopefully, I hope next time you speak, it'll be